Hey, what's up guys, Pattycakes here. I had a fantastic first weekend of Trials. I'm so happy that it's back. It was one of the most fun weekends I've ever had playing Destiny. My team was able to knock out a flawless run pretty quickly on Friday afternoon, and then I played a ton of matches throughout the rest of the weekend, and I was able to help a number of people go flawless to the Lighthouse for their first time ever, which was really fun for me. While playing these games, there are a few things that I noticed myself and my teammates doing that caused us to lose rounds and eventually lose games. And I wanted to break these down so that you might learn from them and be able to improve your play for next weekend. Before I go over these 5 tips, I wanted to talk about 2 things that are a little bit more obvious, but definitely worth stating quickly. The first is that your gear certainly does matter in Trials. If you're 960 power and you're facing off against 1000 plus players, it's going to be a bit rough. Your weapons and abilities will do less damage and you'll receive more incoming damage. So definitely work on getting your power up as high as you can before going into Trials next weekend. However, I want to mention that even if you're a bit lower in power, it's certainly not impossible to win games. We actually lost a couple of games to some teams that were 30 power or so below us because they were really strong players, and honestly we just got outplayed. At the end of the day, it's an FPS game and players with better aim, positioning, and game awareness will shine. The second thing I wanted to mention is that communication is key for all of the 5 tips I'm about to share with you. At some point, I'd like to make a full video with my perspective on good communication, but for now, the basics are to always be calling out things like where you're moving on the map, where you spot enemies both on the radar and in-game, where you get killed and where it came from, and when you get a kill or even just land damage on a player, call that out so that it's easy for your team to capitalize on the opportunity. My friend Ascendant Nomad recently made a great video about communication, and I'll link his video in the description. I think that covers the preparation for now, so let's dig into it. Here's 5 reasons you can't go flawless and how to fix them. The first reason is that you're getting picked way too much. I know this sounds obvious, but if you die, your team is down to a 2v3 situation, and it can be really hard to recover from that, especially against good teams who know how to play off of that pick. What I really noticed in the first weekend of Trials coming back wasn't that players would just mindlessly run out in the open and die. Instead, it was more that they didn't have good map awareness and would sometimes open themselves up to sniper lanes unintentionally, especially later in the round when we had a big advantage and we could have closed out the win. You need to be hyper aware of where your teammates are, where the enemies are most likely to be located, and all of the angles where you could possibly get sniped from. When it comes to playing really good teams, that alone can be the difference between winning and losing. This requires a lot of practice and experience, and I think the best way to improve is to record your own gameplay and watch it back to find every death where you got picked, and then analyze how you could have positioned yourself differently so that you were safe. Reason number 2 is that you're not pushing with the team after getting a pick. On the flip side of number 1, when your team gets the first pick, you have just a few crucial seconds to capitalize on that opportunity before the other team gets a res. It's vital to quickly gain map control and use that 3v2 advantage to push. One of the most common mistakes I'm seeing new players make is playing way too passively when they have a good opportunity to close out a round. There's a fine line here because you certainly don't want to push too aggressively ahead of your team and get yourself killed, but if you stay passively in the back of the map, your teammates won't have your help in a gunfight, and sometimes that extra shot or 2 that you would have been able to land can be the difference between winning or losing the round. There's a lot of finesse to getting the hang of pushing together as a team effectively, and I think the best way to learn this is just to get in there and play a bunch of matches and pay special attention to how your team is moving together or not together. Also, spend some time watching top teams on Twitch or YouTube and analyze how they move together as a group when they get that first kill. Reason number 3 is that you're not pushing together when your team pops a super. Supers are very powerful opportunities to win a round in Trials, but they're also fairly easy to counter with team shots in the current sandbox. The best way to protect someone on your team who pops a super is to push with them so that the enemy team has to choose if they want to shoot at you or your teammate in a super. Ideally, you can also push from a different angle so that the enemies have their attention split one more direction. However, you need to be really careful about the timing on this, because if you push too fast ahead of the super by yourself, you can open yourself up as an easy kill and end up costing the round. The 4th reason you can't go flawless is that you're getting tilted too easily. Maintaining a positive mentality in a game mode like Trials is absolutely essential. You need to be hyping up your teammates and always believing that no matter what, you can come back and win the game. My teammate Bunsen likes to repeat the phrase, "We win these," whenever we're in a bad situation, and a surprising number of times we're able to make some big plays and come back to win the game. The cool thing about Trials is that it's not over until the enemy has 5 rounds once, and you always have that chance to make a comeback. But the only way you're going to do this is to maintain that belief that you have it in you to make those plays you need to make in order to win the game. At some point, I'd like to make a full video on controlling tilt and mental state, and if that's something you'd like to see me create, let me know below in the comments. And finally, the 5th reason you can't go flawless is that you don't adapt your strategy quickly enough. In competitive games like CSGO, there's a concept known as the default. This refers to the default setup that your team is going to start the round with, where you spread out a little bit and safely look for info on where the other team is going, and watch for some potential picks that you could play off of. This type of play works really well on Trials, where you have a fairly standard opening to each round depending on which side of the map that you spawn on. But your default strat will work better against some teams than others depending on how they like to play. This is where you need to be ready to adjust quickly. For example, on Burnout, when we spawned outside, we'd often have one of us jump up top above the B control point to look for a pick, while the other two were holding the east lobby looking for picks and info. Against some teams this would work great. I would get a bridge pick as soon as they jumped across, and we could quickly collapse on them for a 3v2 situation and win the round. However, some other teams would love to rush outside quickly, either through mid or through the west lobby, and all of a sudden I'd find myself in a 1v3 situation where I was likely to die, and often that would spiral into a lost round. So we adjusted our strategy against those teams to push together on part of the map, or just play more slowly and all of us would be outside watching for an opportunity to get a pick as they ran outside. The key here is to not be too set on a particular strategy and always be ready to make a mid-round call to adapt if things aren't going your way. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you liked it, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss my next one. I also recently went through my video catalog and created a bunch of playlists to make it a little bit easier to find my past content. There's a lot of guides on things like aiming, gear setups, and builds, and you might find those interesting. I had a lot of fun playing Trials of Osiris in the first weekend, and I'm looking forward to doing so again next week. We did a lot of carries on my Twitch channel while I was streaming, and I'd love to play with you sometime if you're on PC. You can catch me when I'm live over at twitch.tv/pattycakespc. If you're looking for a great place to find a fire team for Trials, my community Discord has an LFG channel and a lot of players on every platform, so feel free to join up. There's a link to join up in the description. That's all for now. Catch you guys next time.